She braided her hair, helped her pick a dress, then stabbed her 17 times. That wasn't a stranger. That was her best friend. You think you know who's got your back. Tonight, we unravel stories where the hand you held was the very hand that destroyed everything. You won't see what's coming, and neither did they. Buckle up, because these betrayals aren't just shocking, they're personal. Case number 10. The murder of Skylar Neese. She was 16. Smart, funny, full of life. Skylar Neese had the kind of smile that made people feel like everything was okay. She had 2 best friends, Sheila Eddy and Rachel Schoaf. The kind of friendship you think will last forever. They did sleepovers, shared secrets, laughed like sisters. But on July 6, 2012, Skylar snuck out of her bedroom window in West Virginia. Just another night out with her girls, right? That's what it looked like. But she never came home. For months, her parents searched. Flyers, Facebook posts, candlelight vigils. The whole town held its breath, praying for a miracle. But the truth was darker than anyone could have imagined. Sheila and Rachel, her best friends, had lured her out that night with one plan: to kill her. They'd been planning it for weeks. They drove her to a remote wooded area just across the Pennsylvania state line. When Skylar turned her back to grab a lighter, they counted to 3 and they stabbed her over 15 times. She begged. She tried to run. She was 16. Rachel would later confess in court. Her words were chilling. We just didn't like her anymore. Skylar's body wasn't found until months later, buried under leaves and silence. Her so-called friends had gone to school like nothing happened. Sheila even tweeted about how much she missed her. When the truth came out, it wasn't just a small town that broke. It was every parent's worst nightmare, that the people your child trusts most could be the ones to destroy her. Skylar's story isn't just a tragedy. It's a betrayal, pure and simple. Case number 9. The Shanda Sharer murder. Shanda Sharer was 12 years old. Sweet, outgoing, just starting to navigate middle school life in Indiana. In late 1991, she got caught up in a teenage drama. 2 girls, both older than her, were jealous over a girl Shanda had started seeing. One of those girls, Melinda Lovelace, was furious, and she wanted revenge. On January 10th, 1992, Shanda was lured out of her home by Hope Rippey and Tony Lawrence, who told her she'd be meeting up with someone she liked. She got in the car, unaware that Melinda was crouched in the back seat with a knife. What followed was hours of torture. They drove her to an abandoned house, beat her, humiliated her, cut her, strangled her with a rope, but she was still alive. Then they stuffed her in the trunk, stopped for fast food, and eventually dragged her into a field. There, they doused her in gasoline and set her on fire while she was still breathing. Shanda's body was found the next morning, so badly burned she could only be identified through dental records. All 4 girls, Melinda Lovelace, Lori Tackett, Hope Rippey, and Tony Lawrence, were arrested. None of them were over 18. The country was horrified, not just by the brutality, but by the sheer coldness. These weren't hardened criminals. These were high school girls. Some of them laughed about it afterward. And Shanda's only crime? Being liked by the wrong person. A petty grudge turned into one of the most haunting crimes in American history. Case number 8. The Slender Man stabbing. Peyton Lutner was 12. She trusted her friends, Morgan Geyser and Anissa Wire. They'd grown up together. Sleepovers, birthday parties, inside jokes. So when they invited her out to play in the woods on May 31st, 2014, she didn't hesitate. She didn't suspect a thing. But what Peyton didn't know was that her 2 best friends had been planning to kill her. They believed in something called Slender Man, a tall, faceless creature from internet horror forums. The girls thought if they murdered someone, they'd become his servants, or at least he'd spare their families. So they took Peyton deep into the woods, told her they were going to play hide and seek. Then, without warning, they pinned her down and stabbed her 19 times. One blade missed her heart by less than a millimeter. Left alone to die, Peyton crawled out of the woods, bleeding, terrified, and somehow still alive. A passing cyclist found her. She survived. Morgan and Anissa were arrested hours later, showing little remorse. They didn't just betray their friend. They shattered the innocence of an entire community. This wasn't fiction. This was real. And it came from the hands of two girls she thought she knew. Case number 7. The murder of Michelle Avila. Michelle Avila was 17. She was bright, confident, and beautiful, something her so-called best friends, Karen Severson and Laura Doyle, couldn't stand. Behind the friendship were years of jealousy, gossip, and growing resentment. Michelle became the target of rumors, accused of stealing boyfriends, being too confident, too noticed. And for Karen and Laura, that was enough. On October 1st, 1985, the girls told Michelle they were going for a walk in the Angeles National Forest. She went with them. No reason not to. These were her best friends. But once they were deep in the woods, things turned. Karen and Laura began yelling, shoving. Then they held Michelle down, drowned her in a shallow stream, and pinned her body beneath a log. 17 years old. What's worse, Karen showed up at Michelle's funeral, hugged her mother, wept beside her casket. She even moved in with the grieving family afterward, pretending to mourn while knowing exactly what happened. It took years for the truth to surface. When it finally did, the betrayal cut even deeper. Michelle didn't die at the hands of an enemy. She was killed by the people she trusted most. People who smiled at her face and destroyed her the moment she turned her back. Case number 6, the Sarah Stern case. Sarah Stern was 19, an artist, a dreamer, full of life and plans for the future. She grew up in Neptune City, New Jersey, where everyone knew everyone, including her childhood best friend, Leah McCatasney. On December 2nd, 2016, Sarah disappeared. Her car was found abandoned on a bridge. Keys still inside, no sign of a struggle. At first, it looked like suicide, but her family didn't believe it. And they were right. What really happened is chilling. Liam had been planning to kill Sarah for weeks. He knew she had inherited money, around $100,000, and decided her life was worth less than a payday. He strangled her in her own home, calmly waited for her to die, and then called Preston Taylor, another so-called friend, to help dump her body off the bridge. Her remains were never found. The truth came out when Liam confessed, caught on a hidden camera during a conversation with a friend. No emotion, no remorse, just cold calculation. He even described watching the life leave Sarah's eyes. The town was horrified. A young woman full of promise, murdered by someone she trusted since childhood. All for money. It wasn't just a crime. It was betrayal in its purest form. Case number 5. The murder of Adrienne Reynolds. Adrienne Reynolds was just 16. She'd recently moved to East Moline, Illinois, hoping for a fresh start. New school, new friends, new life. And for a while, it seemed to be working. She found a group to hang out with, Sarah Kolb and Corey Gregory. They smoked together, joked around, shared secrets. It felt like real friendship. But behind the scenes, jealousy was simmering. Sarah didn't like the attention Adrienne was getting, especially from boys. The tension built slowly until it all exploded on January 21st, 2005. Adrienne was invited to meet Sarah and Corey at a Taco Bell. She went, thinking it was just another hangout. But once inside the car, things spiraled fast. An argument, a fight, then violence. Sarah strangled her. Corey helped cover it up. They drove her body to Corey's house, where they attempted to burn it. When that didn't work, they dismembered her and dumped the remains in a nearby forest. And then just days later, they posted cryptic, chilling messages on MySpace, almost bragging, almost daring someone to figure it out. Adrienne just wanted to belong. Instead, she trusted the wrong people, and it cost her everything. They weren't friends. They were predators hiding in plain sight. Case number 4, the Betty Broderick case, when friendship turns fatal. At one point, Betty Broderick had it all. For kids, a beautiful home in San Diego, and a rising star husband, Dan Broderick. She even welcomed his young legal assistant, Linda Kolkina, into their lives. Linda wasn't just an employee. She was like a family friend. Betty trusted her, until she didn't. Because behind Betty's back, Dan and Linda were having an affair. A slow-burning betrayal that unraveled Betty's world. The marriage collapsed. Dan married Linda, and Betty was left on the outside, angry, isolated, unraveling. The divorce turned bitter. Voicemails, restraining orders, public meltdowns. Friends say Betty was spiraling, but no one expected what came next. On November 5th, 1989, Betty used a key she'd stolen from her daughter to enter Dan and Linda's bedroom in the early hours of morning. She shot them both as they slept. Linda never even had a chance to run. It was one of the most talked about cases of the decade. A woman once seen as the perfect wife turned into a symbol of rage and betrayal. This wasn't just about jealousy. It was about trust shattered, friendships broken, an emotional weight of being replaced by someone she once called friend. Case number 3, the murder of Jennifer Cave. Jennifer Cave was 21, smart, full of life, and just starting to figure things out. She had a new job lined up and plans for the future. On August 16th, 2005, she went out to celebrate with someone she trusted, Colton Pataniak, a friend from college. He was charming, well-liked, and seemed safe. But that night changed everything. By the next morning, Jennifer was dead, shot, stabbed, and mutilated. Her body was found in Colton's apartment, left in a bathtub like trash. It didn't even look real. And Colton? He vanished. What made it worse? Another friend, Laura Hall, helped him run. They fled to Mexico, while Jennifer's family searched for answers. It took days before they were caught, and even then, no one fully understood why he did it. Colton claimed he was high, confused, didn't remember, but the damage was done. Jennifer's family was left with grief and horror. She thought she was celebrating with a friend. Instead, she ended up trusting a killer. This wasn't random. This wasn't a stranger. It was someone she laughed with. Case number 2, the Michelle Liu murder case. Michelle Liu was 26, a nursing student, kind-hearted, and always a friend who showed up when you needed her. She had dreams, plans, and people who loved her. So when she vanished on May 27, 2011, after taking a break from class in Hayward, California, everyone knew something was wrong. At first, there were no signs of a struggle, just a missing car, a missing woman, no real answers. But behind it all was Giselle Esteban, Michelle's former best friend. Giselle had become obsessed, convinced Michelle was interfering in her relationship, spreading lies, trying to take something that wasn't hers. The jealousy festered, and eventually, it exploded into murder. She lured Michelle into a parking garage and killed her. Cold, planned, brutal. For months, Michelle's family held out hope. But surveillance footage, phone records, and Giselle's own words unraveled the truth. Michelle's remains weren't found until nearly 4 months later. The betrayal made it worse. This wasn't some stranger in the dark. It was someone Michelle once called a friend, someone she trusted. In the end, Giselle didn't just take a life. She destroyed a friendship and left a hole no apology could ever fill. Case number 1, the Lisa Harnum murder, the ultimate betrayal. Lisa Harnum was 30 years old. Originally from Canada, she moved to Sydney, Australia, for a fresh start and fell in love with a man named Simon Gidney. To the outside world, they looked picture perfect. But behind closed doors, Lisa's life was quietly collapsing. Simon wasn't just her fiancé, he was her closest confidant. But over time, that trust became control. He monitored her texts, her movements. He isolated her from everyone she knew. And when Lisa finally decided to leave, bags packed, escape planned, it was too late. On July 30th, 2011, Simon was caught on security cameras dragging Lisa back into their high-rise apartment. Moments later, he threw her off the 15th-floor balcony. She died on impact. Simon claimed it was suicide, but the evidence said otherwise. The trial gripped Australia. Secret recordings, witness testimonies, a portrait control so calculated, it chilled the courtroom. Lisa's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was betrayal at its purest form. The man she loved, the one she called her best friend, was the one who ended her life, just as she was trying to reclaim it. Have you ever heard of a betrayal that cuts this deep? Because, honestly, some of these don't even feel real. Let me know in the comments, which case shook you the most so far? Or if you've heard of another chilling story where trust turned deadly, drop it below. Let's talk about it. If there's one thing these stories show us, it's that the line between friend and enemy isn't always clear. Sometimes the people we let closest are the ones who do the most damage. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, hit the like button. It helps way more than you think. Subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Because next time, we're diving into cases where the killer wasn't a friend. It was family. Stay tuned.